I'm awed by the people that come here and that show up every week, and just the caliber of human that is present and open and showing up with love and willing to share vulnerably what they're going through. And it's just a beautiful thing to witness. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen, honestly, and to see how God or the synarchy comes together and allows us each to share exactly what is needed. That's what I've seen each time. It's like exactly what is needed. There's somebody in that room that has the medicine that is exactly the thing that somebody needs to say. Okay, I am going to do our formal kind of kickoff here. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for carving out the time. Like I say each time, this is, I think, the most important work that you can do is to connect to your higher self, connect to God, and learn how to hear what's coming through, and just as importantly, how to take action on those things, or sometimes how to not take action, equally as important. The way that these calls go is very free flowing. There is no agenda that I show up with. The agenda is, how can I be of the greatest service each time we get on a call? So if you feel called to speak, I encourage you to speak. You're not going to get what you need if you don't ask for it. And when you do that, you're not taking up anyone's time or anyone's space. The point of these calls is to learn from one another. And so if your engagement in conversation goes for an hour, that means everyone else on this call learned for an hour, right? Just because it's your specific life situation, trust me, all of us can figure out how to apply that wisdom into different components of our lives. We're all mirrors for one another. This is a conversation. This is about the synarchy that develops here. This time, I want to just do a little group attunement to get us all into the room and all into the space. We're passing through the 40th gene key right now. So if you do not subscribe to the Pulse newsletter, I really recommend that you do that. Every 6 days, they send out a gene key of the week, quote unquote. And you get the audio, which is Richard's reflection. So it's totally different. It's not just him reading the book. This is his contemplation on that specific gene key. And you can buy them. They're like $2 a piece. But if you just hang around for a year, you'll go through each one of those audios for free. So this divine will, a lot of times I think we hear the word will and we think that we have to do something. But in reality, to align to divine will, what you have to do is relax. What you have to do is let go and trust. And so as we enter this attunement, that is what I want your intention to be, to just relax and to trust and to know that this container is safe and that you're going to get the medicine that you need. So if you feel comfortable where you are, if you can get upright, whether that's sitting or lying down so that your spine is relatively straight, that would be great. If you feel comfortable in closing your eyes, I invite you to do that. And let's just start with a couple big, deep breaths together, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Breathing in love and peace. Letting go of our stress, our burdens. Breathing in clarity and light. Letting go of uncertainty. And just noticing where you feel your breath in your body. Do you feel it in your belly contracting and expanding, in your chest, in your lungs? Is it the air passing by your nostrils or coming out of your lips? And I want you to connect to your senses. So first, listening to what's around you, to my voice, to the sound of your breath. Maybe you're inside and there's a refrigerator humming in the background, or you're outside and there's birds chirping. Notice that there's nothing to do except to receive. And now I want you to go to the sense of touch. I have my hand on my belly and my chest, and I feel that support. Maybe it's the seat beneath you, your shirt or a necklace. But just connecting deeply to this plane. Now I want to focus on the top of your head, your crown. That opening place that we can receive the divine essence of involution. This divine will that reaches down and constantly reminds us what we are here to do and who we are here to be. Feel its light, its grace entering through the top of your head, coming down through your spinal column, down through your belly to the very root of your being. And know that power, that flow is available to you always. All you have to do is slow down and remember. You are loved. You are guided. You are exactly where you need to be. I'm just closing now with 3 more big, deep breaths. Inhaling, exhaling, inhaling. Gradually now wiggling fingers and toes and starting to come back into your space, into your body, into your being, knowing that support that we just felt, that light is ever present. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart, really, for being here. It means the world to me. So with that, let's open it up. If anybody is feeling courageous, Andre, I saw a hand to go up. Go for it, brother. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Jay. And hello, everyone. I wanted to come on these calls because I've been watching and I've been messaging Jay on my other account. It's called the Website Hero. So I've been commenting on the videos. Honestly, I wanted to come on the first time I heard about the wisdom call, but I was terrified because a little preface of my story, I actually hated humans for all my life. I never connected with anybody. I always felt alien to this world. Me even sharing right now, I feel very vulnerable. But there was one night that I was looking up like lines of the gene keys because there wasn't really any infos on the lines. And sure enough, your videos popped up, Jay. And I was like listening to you. And I think I mentioned in one of my comments, like, you make it so easy to understand, or I like to use the word understand. Because when I listen to Richard, and he's an amazing guy, he's got that Merlin feeling. And sometimes I don't really jive with the Merlin feeling. I need like the real, like human, like talk. And just the way you explain all the things that I've been going through has been quite informative. So first off, I want to say thank you for number one, making these videos. Number two, for doing these calls. Because when I was watching, because I've watched all the wisdom calls up to this point, and I've seen like a Valerie and I've seen Lily. I know the names and I've seen you guys talk and how vulnerable you guys share. And this space being super vulnerable and authentic and real, it touches my heart. And I had to come on today. And I wanted to come on today. So first off, I just really want to say thank you, Jay, for creating this safe space to share. And honestly, like I started this gene key journey back in late 2022. And funny enough, I was like one of the only humans on the planet that knew about the gene keys. And I was like, clearly that's not the case. And I looked at my like spheres and I have the rebel gene key, which is gene key 21, valor. And as Richard likes to say in his audio, this one's got a bit of a reputation. I'm like thunder below and lightning above. And to preference, I called myself the supervillain of hate for practically all my life since the age of 12. And I went on to this like hating humans for like at least 20 to 25 years of my life. I'm now 39. I had a spiritual awakening just before COVID hit. So October 6th, 2019, I know exactly when it happened. I actually made a profile, which is going to sound weird, but I made another profile of the time I spiritually awakened. And believe it or not, my life's work and my evolution are reversed, but they are the same numbers, which is so weird. Because like I was born April 2nd, 1985, but on October 6th, it's a 2019, it's the reverse. Aries and Libra, essentially, which is there's a sign because like my evolution on my original profile is 48, the gene key of wisdom. And I have the line 4. So like I'm more server, giving to the world, charity. And right now I'm still figuring out what my path is in life because now I call myself the superhero of love because I am here to love on people. We need someone in the world who can do this kind of work. Now, I've maybe bit off more than I can chew, per se, but I know that I'm not here by accident. Even though for majority of my life I thought I was a mistake. I didn't want to exist. So for anyone who's like ever feeling like that, you're loved, as Jay said. You are truly loved. And yeah, I'm still learning about all like the pearl sequence and the breakthroughs and like all the different spheres. And I have both of my profiles open on my screen right now. And I know I have this like driving force to being somewhat of a leader in the world. I have the authority figure. It's just that sometimes I struggle with an outlet of like how I can bring my wisdom because like I have a YouTube channel, hasn't quite gone the way I expected, but it's going the way it's supposed to. Like I go by life as things happen the way it's meant to happen. Like I let go of what is known as control because that's the shadow and just surrender. Ultimate surrender, just like allowing things to unfold the way it is. So like in this world right now, I'm just figuring out how do I like bring my wisdom because I always have an answer for anything that someone's going through. Like I can cover any kind of range of subject matters. Personal development, like spirituality, like romance or like relationship, health, um all the things. It's just basically clarity was one of the things I always struggled with because growing up I wanted to be a superhero. I want to be like a Power Ranger. I'm just going to be honest. I wanted to be a Power Ranger saving the world. But people told me that doesn't exist. They're not real. You can't save the world. Who do you think you are? So then, of course, over time, I let that voice say, yeah, you can't do it. And I went the logical route and I became an IT like administrator. So I've been doing logical kind of work all my life. And now I'm learning to start tapping into my right side brain, my intuition, my creative center. Easier said than done, but I'm working through it. And when I watch you make content on YouTube, I'm like, I want to do something like this. It's just I may not speak as articulately as you, but I'm not comparing myself at all to you whatsoever. I'm just seeing you as like an example of this is what's possible. So that's why I really am so grateful that you number one made these videos, number two had these you brought this idea to like make a wisdom call. And I had somewhere deep down inside thinking you're probably going to eventually do like readings on people's like gene keys and helping them. And sure enough, I think in one of your last videos, you mentioned you're starting to do that. So it's like, yeah, he's on his path. He's doing the thing. And I listened to the last video where you're with carrying the ruck. And that was like working out every day is my way of feeling like that energy too. So like I resonate with you so much when you were talking about carrying something heavy and taking a walk or going into your basement where you able or your like area where you work out with the heavy like sandbags and stuff. Um so yeah, I know I'm just like riffing right now, but I just wanted to get this kind of out of my like system because like I felt called to come today and I wanted to be the first to share something. So thank you. I may have something later on to share, but I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Andre. Dude, you like Lily just said, not only are you extremely articulate, you're an eloquent and engaging speaker, and I couldn't agree more with her. Like
Thank you.
you just carried the room for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, and I know I didn't want to stop listening. So I encourage you to think about your story there
Mm,
because clearly I think that there's a gift for gab, if you will, that
yeah.
you have there. And I just want to reflect a few things that
Yeah.
kind of maybe just let you know you're not alone, maybe. How about that? So
Mm,
first, you said you were scared to come on, and then you're the first one to unmute yourself and to talk. So I just want to recognize that and to congratulate you on, even though you had the fear, you took the step anyway. And that choice is the same choice that we just have to make over and over again in our lives to get us
yeah.
on the path that we actually need to be. This idea that the world was alien to you and the fact that you felt like a mistake, like when you said that, dude, that hit me right in my heart because I felt that way my entire life. And honestly, depending on the day and how things are going, those are still thoughts that sometimes pop into my brain. I just have a
Yeah.
different skill set in what to do with them now. It used to put me into a depression for days on end that I couldn't get out of bed or come out of my room. And now I recognize it as this is a part of me that's coming forth that needs to be loved, that needs to be seen, that needs to be felt and experienced,
Mm,
and just creating the space for that. You said that you had some uncertainty or that you weren't sure that you'd be able to handle what came your way as you walked your path. And I just want to encourage you and everyone listening that your heart has an infinite capacity, meaning that as long as you are operating from heart center, you can and will handle everything that comes your way. Where we start to get into that feeling of overwhelm, of struggle, of I need to figure this out is just that, right? We're up here, we're trying to figure it out, we're trying to control. But if we can stay down here, that capacity for love is never ending, it's unconditional. As far as how to bring wisdom forward, have you thought at all around just what you're passionate about, around what you most love talking about? I think that there's a direct connection between the stuff that we love and what we're meant to do. I think that's the reason it's
mm,
put there for us.
yeah.
Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah. So my journey, like I said, like I had to build some foundational pieces of I wanted to just be a better human because I was like, I'm just gonna be blunt. I was like a piece of shit. That's what I thought of myself throughout growing up. And I just want to be a better human because I was, like you mentioned, I didn't feel seen. I never felt heard. I was always the one like, don't talk back, just listen and like only respond when you are meant to respond. And over time, I lost my curiosity and I stopped asking people questions about being curious. So these are the things like I'm now rewiring back into my system And so I have to build foundations of like self-love and mindset and positivity. Now, the thing is, I know I'm not everyone else and I know we're all one. I'm still wrestling with that concept of we all are one. And when I look at, I'm not here to compare or compete with anybody out in the social media world. However, like there are a lot of things that like I know, I'm not gonna say I'm better because that's spiritual egotism. I don't want to get into that because that's a whole other like conversation. I love talking about spirituality. I love empowering people because we are divine sovereign beings. This is I went from being a piece of shit or thinking I was a piece of shit to now knowing that I'm a divine sovereign being. All of us are. We're all one, right? You're all my brothers and sisters, plain and simple. I see you all as family. Even if I've never physically met you, you're all family to me. And I can easily say I love you all with ease. I don't have that problem of holding back, sharing my words. But I want people to know that the way I'm living my life, that they are able to access that same energy because it's theirs. And that's why I've been like struggling with like my messaging, or they talk about in the business world, the client avatar. And I know my client avatar is the me from several years ago, but the me from several years ago was stubborn. He wouldn't listen, plain and simple. And I literally can probably help anyone because I've been through a whole spectrum. The only thing I can't relate to are women who have given birth because I'm not a woman. And I can't relate to someone who's lived on the streets because I was not never in that poverty state, but I have had a lot of like struggles financially. I got hit with a crypto scam in 2021, lost practically 95% of my resources. And ever since that moment, I've still been rebuilding. And I've been like you, Jay. You talked about the uncertainty for a couple months where you just were figuring out, like, what are you going to do? I've been on this for 2 years because I let go of my IT job. I refused to work for someone else because I'm not here to take orders from someone else. I'm here to serve at a high capacity. So these are the things that I am like figuring out, okay, what am I going to talk about? I can do that. It's just part of me put in some effort in the past and it didn't quite work out. And I know maybe it's because I wasn't aligned, and that's okay. Um,
So here's
yeah,
where, man, we have similar trajectories for sure. A
yeah,
lot of the stuff that you're saying is really resonates with me on a deep level. And Jan and Lily, I see you guys. I'm going to kick it over to you after I roll. I want to encourage you just from hearing you over the past, whatever, 20 minutes. There's nothing you need to do except be yourself.
mm,
All you have to do is get in front of a camera or a microphone or whatever, or a computer, and write whatever medium feels good for you, and just share who you are from your heart. Do not worry about a client avatar. Do not worry about structuring your business in a certain way. Do not worry about your marketing message. Do not worry about any of that. That is the
mm,
world that I came from, right? That was my
right,
last business, was all of that. So I'm not saying it because I'm not familiar with it or
mm,
I think that it doesn't work. It does. The problem, though, is that you attract all the wrong people when that's your thought process. When you are
right,
trying to figure out, how can I convince people to listen to me,
mm,
is totally different from when I just show up and I share who I am from my heart, right? That's the reason that you resonate with my videos. That's the
yeah,
reason everyone here is on this call, is because I'm just who I am. And
mm,
people can feel that through the screen.
it's true.
And I can feel the wisdom that you have, right? This doesn't work if you're somebody who's shallow and who doesn't have an understanding and who like doesn't have depth to their being.
Mm,
But you're not that person.
thank you.
And so I've heard a couple of times now this 6-line idea of the role model, right? I
Yeah,
just want to influence and impact other people by having them be around me, right? I was listening
mm,
to the 40th Gene Key today, actually. And one of the things Richard says is there's an exchange that happens when somebody who is super stressed out shows up in the room with somebody that is super peaceful.
mm,
And it is through that example and through that energy exchange that you can really have a deep impact on somebody without saying anything. And if you think to people in your life who, when you get into the room with them, they're just calm and loving and peaceful, that is what impacts. And you just have to trust that the right people that are designed to be unlocked by your aura are going to end up in the same energetic space as you. However, you still have to walk that pathway of initiative, which means sharing yourself and putting yourself out to the world. Otherwise, how do people have anything to connect with?
It's true.
Jan, I want to call you in here.
Thank you, Jay. And thank you, Andre, for sharing. I'm just curious, and I totally understand if you're not going to answer this. But it was interesting. I heard you talking about this when you were talking about the supervillain of hate. And then I was waiting like, so when is he going to be talking about the superhero of love? And that came, which is wonderful to hear. But it is interesting to hear you use that first set of words. And as you were talking about, I'm not sure what it is that I'm here to do or how to do it. Looking at what you love is one thing. Looking at what you hate and why you hate it is the other side. And if these two somehow work as a mirror, that's quite interesting. And I think so that there was an observation. And again, this is what you don't have to answer. I'm just curious if you know what made you hate people, hate humans. That's one thing, because my initial sense is something happened, and it happened over time. And I think you were alluding to that in a bit when people were saying to you, you can't save the world, right? And if that's said to you over and over and over and over and over again, knowing it is one thing, but my experience is it's also stuck in your body.
Yeah.
So where I hear Jay say, all you have to do, and I'm with you, Jay, don't get me wrong, I'm with you, all you have to do is show up. I can also relate to, because this is my story, the resistance and the hesitation to just show up. So because there is stuff in your system which basically says, yeah, and then I'm going to be hurt just like the last time. I'm not going to be doing that. So that's what showed up for me. And I love, by the way, and it's interesting, especially when you think about the hate, when you think about the words you used, you can't save the world, right? When you think about what you said, I'm not here to take orders. There's a pattern there. And I'm just curious, but even more curious for you to figure out what it is that you don't know, which is subconsciously hidden in your body right now, which is really pulling you back to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's my share.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Andre, does that resonate? Do you feel some resistance to showing up?
Yeah, a little bit. I got rejected a lot when I was younger, like a ton. There's a lot of women on the call right now, so please be mindful that I only have love. But back then, I fucking hated women with a passion. That was it, being rejected. And then when I was 13, there was an incident that happened at school where it was a friend of mine, or I thought was, he was being bullied. And I was bullied when I was younger, so I knew what it felt like to be bullied. I went to go and help him, and I did. But at the consequence, I went to console him, comfort him. And back then, and again, I only have love and respect for the LGBTQ community, but back then being called gay was like a crime. It was a sin. And I was called that. And the entire school started calling me that. And eventually I started wearing like dark clothes. I had to change my persona. I was basically wearing masks all my life. I literally didn't even know who the fuck I was. I literally wore a mask until I was like 34, when that spiritual awakening happened. And how that came about was a woman was literally lifeless in her car while I was driving by on the highway. And some white light just hit me like, oh my fucking God, this woman is dead in her car. What have I been doing on this planet? I've been wasting time. That's literally how my awakening happened. But yeah, I haven't been seen or heard. And as I shared, like whenever I would speak up, it was like you're talking too loud. And this is all, of course, from like parents and stuff as well. So like they added their own layer of stuff. So it wasn't just outside, it was also in the home too. So I never felt safe anywhere, basically. So I'm starting to find my tribe, and I know I might end up having tribes with you guys. Who knows? I don't know. I'm open to whatever happens. And I'm just walking this path and just figuring it out as I go.
So you referenced the video that I did with the ruck and working out and stuff like
Mm,
that. I think Jan has a good thought here in that a big part of the work that feels important right now is probably moving some of that trapped energy around.
mm,
And so doing some different embodiment practices like breath work stuff, or go to that human garage video that I mentioned. Have you ever done
yeah.
any fascial work before?
Mm-mm.
So, dude, that's been really impactful for me over the past month or so.
Mm,
That's another great one. Another idea is what's called TRE, which is traumatic release. Definitely can bring some things up. I'm not a doctor, so make sure
right,
that
right.
you
Yeah,
are safe and aware of what comes with that. But it's
right.
basically like creating the conditions for controlled shaking, which is
Mm,
some of that trauma releasing. So I definitely encourage you to dig into some of that stuff to help move some of those things so that you
right.
can share yourself, who you really are without those masks. And
Yeah.
just within the past couple years, this is my story again. Also, I that entire last business that I ran, I was not me. It was
Mm,
this facade. It was this version of me that I felt like I needed to be for other people.
right.
And that's exhausting, man. To have to wear a mask and be somebody you're not all the time is
Hmm.
just exhausting.
Yeah.
Lily, do you want to chime in?
Yes, thank you, Andre, for sharing all this stuff. And we are family. You said it now, so that's done.
Yeah. That's done.
um, that's done. It's so funny because I remember the inner stand comment because it really resonated with me. I thought that's really clever. So I'm so glad you're here. When you were speaking, what
Mm,
came to me is the 55th gene key. So I've been
yeah.
thinking about this a lot, and it's a really tough one to contemplate. And
That's
I have been
actually,
working on it.
yeah, that's actually in my, that's my SQ in my
Okay,
original like profile. So freedom.
no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what came up to me. I thought I've been thinking about this a lot because it has really been putting this whole thing in perspective to me, and it's all quite difficult to understand. It's all a bit woo and magic, but it's really given me this anticipation of something is happening. And when you were speaking about how you are here now, but maybe you're just not sure what exactly to do next, it just kept popping up in my head as the 55th jinky. That's your thing. That's what you will need to do. And I don't have any advice on how that's obviously going to come to you because you need to decide that. But a change is coming and you are very important. And you said it yourself, you are, I don't know what you use, but you are a light worker essentially.
Hmm.
And people will need to rely on you and your knowledge. And I just wanted to reiterate that message to you. That's what you are. So don't get, as Jay said already and Jan said already, you don't need to get into the nitty-gritty details on how I'm going to make this work because it's all
Yeah.
going to happen. It's all already happening, and you just need to continue to be who you are.
Thank you, Lily.
I'm gonna add, because I just want you to know, Andre, that literally yesterday I casted the 50 hexagram.
Mm,
I'm practicing my I Ching now because of the gene keys, although I've had the book for 30 years now. I'm
mm,
finally practicing, and I literally yesterday casted the 55th. And I'm like, that's interesting why I casted that. And then here we are. So yeah,
yeah.
it's just all connected. Yeah. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you. I did
Yeah.
want to share one other thing like that's popping up, like the thing that's, I know the thing that I'm going through, a lot of other people are facing. And and in one of my other gene keys, I have gene key 39, which is liberation. I'm also here to help liberate people's hearts so that they can be free. That's what I'm here to do. I can feel it in my entire like core. That's what I'm here to do. How I'm letting go of the how, because there's the tyranny of the how, right? Just letting that go and just allowing the universe, God. I call God, universe, source, creator, all the different names. Like I believe in it all. So I'm allowing creator to just work through me the best I can and attempting to just be open and not let this take control and let this, the heart way, lead the way. And I always say, may your heart be your guiding key to anyone. I'm sure I must have said it in one of my comments that may your heart be your guiding key. Yeah. I really want to take this time to say thank you for everybody I know I'm not taking up space and I know that. I really just want to say thank you for allowing me to share what I had to share.
Of course, brother. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for sharing it. Ananta, I want to come in and share, please. Can anyone else hear Ananta, or is that me? No. Okay, Ananta, we can't hear you. You're not muted though, so I'm not sure. Yeah, no, still can't hear. Maybe try and log off, log back in. Let's see if that works. Okay, let's go to.
I did want to ask one thing to Jan, because I remember in the last wisdom call that you were talking about that chart thing behind you.
Yes.
And I was curious about if it's possible to have a copy of that, because like it looks very fascinating to me.
Jay has it, and Jay has my permission to share it with all of you. And I'm not sure. I don't think it happened in the previous email that you sent out, Jay. But Jay has full permission to share it.
It will come in this. I send out the recordings after I get them up on YouTube, and I totally forgot to attach it last time. So yes, I will attach it this time when it goes out. I promise. I'm sorry to everyone that was waiting on that. Apologies. Marcy, let's go up to you, please. You're muted too, my dear.
There we go. Is that better?
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, Andre, just thank you so much for showing up exactly as you are. It's the gift of permission is what I'm really receiving through you. And the part of your share that is got my heart thumping is the little one that wanted to be a Power Ranger and save the world. And I'm just feeling drawn to this invitation to have the courage to be with the love of that little one that wanted to save the world. Because it is like so powerful. It is so innocent. It is so real. It's so true. And it's so scary. And to have that much love, that much vulnerability, that much desire to be of service at that level, and then to be shut down in that place of shutdown. And for me, what's coming up is I remember I wanted to solve world hunger. And so I wanted to be a nurse. And that's what I was going to do. I was going to figure out how we could feed people. And I got shut down. I got laughed at by my parents that it was a ridiculous idea. And so that's been hanging out with me, like the pain of the shutdown and the power of the love behind that desire and awe of saving people. Yeah, so I just wanted to touch in and reflect that piece.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, Marcy. Thank you. And I agree, Andre. I actually had it written down on my paper and I didn't talk about it, but as you aim to take the steps in the next direction, wherever that may lead, I think getting back to that sense of innocence, reconnecting to that version of yourself and operating from there is going to be a key piece of that puzzle. And it's going to take some work to get to a place of trust that allows you to be with that part of yourself again because of what has happened in your past.
Yeah.
And just reminding yourself that disconnection happened for a reason. and the reconnection will happen for an equally potent and powerful reason.
Yeah.
Ananta, let's try again. No, still no. Sorry, girly. Looks like we're listening today.
It shows her mic is muted, but
Did that time? I think it was unmuted though. Will you try and unmute and talk one more time? Yeah.
no.
Still no. We
Got
tried.
Ananta, you may want to check the microphone settings next to the mute button. This little arrow, and see if the right microphone has been selected, because it looks like you're on your AirPods and maybe you selected a different microphone so we can't hear you, just so you know.
And feel free to try throughout to say something. Maybe you'll interrupt and we'll get a brilliant piece.
I did want to share one thing about what you were sharing about reconnecting to my little me. So I actually go in a lot with myself, and there's the 13-year-old, there's the 5-year-old me who's wearing the superhero cape. I actually had a sort of like a hypno session like back in 2021, just after I got hit with my like crypto scam that happened back then. And I was like sitting, I saw this door behind me. I walked through this door. I hear this little like boy crying, and it's me. Obviously, it's the little me. And he had a pink balloon because I love pink. And he was holding it and he was sucking his thumb. And he's like, "Why haven't you come for me? I've been waiting for you all this time." And I'm like, "What do I do?" He's pick me up and take me out of this darkness. I picked him up and I carried him, and he had tears that are flowing out of my eyes that I'm currently having. And as soon as I picked him up, the darkness started dissipating. And I walked through the door and it became a door of light. And then he like saw this sort of like a Disney castle in the far end, and he started running and he's like, "Come." And I ran with him, and sure enough, like at the time, the people that I knew, like the representation of humanity was there waiting. They're like, "Welcome home." So like I do connect with that little me, but I still have to trust it more, is basically my journey right now.
Yeah, it's one thing to reconnect with it and to know that it's there and to honor it and nurture it. It's another to allow it to be the thing that is controlling your experience.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen the movie, oh my gosh, Split. Have you ever seen the movie Split?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it. No.
Okay, so it's a sequel to, it's like a superhero movie, and it's about a guy that has split personality disorder, and he has 20 different personalities. And the point of this is they say which one of us is going to take the light, which is like basically the control over what's happening in the conscious experience. And that's really what I'm getting at, is like letting that part of you take over, which takes a deep level of trust, because the last time it took over, you were hurt.
Yeah. The words trust, faith, and belief were never in my existence. So it's only now I'm starting to wire these words back into my essence. Like they always existed. It's just they're buried. And I need to like remove. If you all have read the book Return to Love by Marianne Williamson, she talks about layers. I'm basically removing all the layers. I like to make an analogy that I'm wearing like 20 pairs of sweaters, and I'm basically going back to being naked. So I'm like literally removing the sweaters right now.
Totally. I love that idea. I just want to highlight one of the comments from Courtney, that when you are in a physical practice, try and tap in to an area around your collarbone and see what brings
Like
up.
here?
Yeah. And driving that down through your feet to try and help release and stabilize. So Courtney can sometimes have an experience of being able to see different energies, if you will. So that's coming from a place of, I'm guessing, of being able to see something as you're engaging.
Thank you, Courtney.
Do you have any? Yeah, there you go.
I was just going to say, I don't know if it resonates. I can't always understand what I'm seeing, but when you're sharing about your story, there's a lot of really fast energy right here. Feels like I can't get down.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi, I just was noticing, and I'm just thanking you for your share as well, but I was noticing that thread of your awakening, being connected to saving a woman, and then your superhero cape, and then your share about women. And it feels connected. I got a little chills for myself about it, but it feels like there's a part of you that has a really strong story of helping women. And I do think there's so much kind of chatter around and on the internet about how to control your women and how, there's like a lot of this. I hear it through other people. I don't follow it, but I just wonder if that's your kind of an in of honesty and vulnerability. If you're trying to message and there's something you want to message, that feels like it sounds like it comes from a really strong, passionate heart. And it's like bookending because you had this real history of hating women, and yet you're called to save women. That was what I saw, the connection there. I don't know if that's the whole thing, but it did feel like it was popping up a little bit. Like to see your like sharing how you had to overcome that or what you're doing to overcome it as your honest, vulnerable self, which sounds really terrifying to me. But you obviously have a really powerful story, because when you were sharing, I just immediately started to crying. Like I just, yeah, it was really, I was right there with you. And I love that you love pink. Just all the things. I'm gonna mute myself again, but I just wanted to jump in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Andre, I want you to take all this in, man. I don't think you realize the level of impact that you have when you speak. There's another woman, Lindsay, who comes to these calls who has the same thing going on.
I've seen her. Yeah. She has the same 48 gene key as her life's work.
Yes, exactly. So just take all this in, man. Know that you have a lot to share and an ability to impact people. And I'm so grateful that you came today. Thank you. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you. And I love you all very much.
Love you too, brother. Thank you for being here. Is feeling the call to unmute and bring something up. Let's move on. Let's go to our next part, whatever that may be.
Okay, I'm just going to jump in because I'm new to the whole talking on that. I've been watching all the lives. Just curious, does anybody attack the introspection from something they know about themselves and then try to find it in the key? So it's like I'm like exploring like a thing that I struggle with that's thematic in my life. And I wonder if you try to find where that shadow is in the key, coming up from it that way, instead of going, oh, look, there's that shadow, but the opposite.
Yeah, definitely. So there's two big approaches that Richard talks about, one being the analog approach and one being the digital approach to the gene keys.
Okay.
And I always forget which one's which. I want to say digital is the ordered one. It's ones and zeros. So what that means is it's the golden path, right? And it's this step-by-step system, and we go in order, and this comes before that. And however, there's this other component, this analog component to the gene keys, which is just trusting your intuition, going with the flow and allowing what is calling to you to be the thing that you're investigating. And so it sounds like that is exactly what you're doing, where you have this energy that you're feeling and you're like, okay, I want to follow that into the gene keys and try and put some words to the energy, try and figure out how I can understand how to transmute it ultimately, how to put that energy into use, into service of the whole, and coming back into wholeness yourself. So yes, that was a really long way to say yes. I think that is totally reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Cheryl, can you share a little bit more maybe about the theme, just to get an idea? Because I think what's interesting, and this is actually a conversation Jay and I have been having a while ago as well, when we look at our lives, which is actually a little element of this thing here. This is the idea of being the whole human in our day-to-day life, in which area this shows up. So that would already give you a clue whether it is, let me just put it like this, work-related, if it would be prospering, would it be something in the Pearl, or is it relationship-related? Would it be in the Venus sequence? So where would you get started for looking for it? Or what is it that you experience? And when you look at the map, is there any word that shows up in any one of the spheres as either the shadow, the gift of the city, where you feel like, hey, but that's the one that resonates?
And I assume it's a shadow, which is because it's like this. It's a, oh, I guess I just figured it out. Even though I've been staring at this since like March, and yeah, I think but it feels petty a little bit to even say it, but it's like this feeling like, I just think that there's this idea that we are, I know that the world doesn't circle around us, but yet it just always feels really hard for me to align the idea that the world doesn't stop when something really bad happens. And I know that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? But like a death in the family or an illness or something happens to you. And I have this idea that I'm always having to push back, which is the world should just stop and just recognize this thing that's happening. And I know that's just, I don't know. That's why I hesitated to even share it, because I don't have like exactly the word for it, but I feel like it's almost like a narcissistic trait in me that I'm recognizing, and I don't like it, but I just want to be like, what is that? What is it like? When I'm looking in here, is it like, I don't know, superficiality? Is it recognition? That's my pearl shadow and the 57. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm a little bit rambling because I'm, like I said, Jay, my approach to this has been so just, what am I getting pulled towards? And so I focused all weekend on 47, which I think I even messaged you or through the comments about the last session being so 47, because it was just so much about what I was drawn to. And then I looked at the video. So my approach has been just real willy-nilly. But that feeling that I'm talking about, that rambling feeling of just feeling like the world should stop, and why doesn't it? And then realizing, oh, of course it can't stop. The world just has to be the world. And I just don't know what that is in me that I need to be looking at. What is that shallow or insecure or needy part of me that wants that?
What is in your evolution? Just out of curiosity.
My evolution is, sorry, my glasses are not good for this computer. Oh, it's a 51. So awakening, initiative, agitation.
Wonderful.
Why do you laugh?
Your laugh. Oh my God, that's hilarious.
No, I'm laughing because the 51 is my life's work. And
oh, got it.
It was so funny when I showed my map. My profile looks like this with all kinds of notes. So a while ago, I showed it to my youngest son, who's 19, and I said, so this stuff is so interesting. And I said, look, the life's work, and then the number 51, and then my shadow was agitation. And he started laughing just like I laughed. And he was like, yeah, I so recognize that in you. And I just had to laugh about that. But when you were talking about what was annoying you when the world doesn't stop, and I was like, that's something that you need to learn, right? That's what it sounded like. That's your evolution. Yeah. And then when you said the 51, I had to laugh because the whole agitation thing is, it agitates you that the world doesn't stop when something really annoying happens or something really important. Let me rephrase that. Really important happens for you. And then there's agitation. And then how do you turn that around? What's the gift? The initiative. And then you get to the awakening. The world doesn't stop no matter what happens. So, so I'm rambling, but I'll stop here. But I think that the approach, what you were looking for, I think that's interesting because, as Jay was saying, the whole idea of the gene keys that Richard shared, those two ways. One is go in order. And that's one thing I've been doing from as I started, really go through the whole thing in order once. And I have no clue what everything means, but at least I've gone through everything once just to get a feel. Like, and now what I'm doing, and now what I'm doing is every 6 days, basically what Jay said, is listen to the pulse and read the book, even if it's not in my profile, and say what shows up. What is this about? And does it show up in my life? Because the fact that it isn't in my profile does not mean it doesn't show up in my life. And if it shows up in my life, something else which is happening, where in my profile can I find it? So what do I feel attracted to in that sense? What you were talking about, this is happening and I feel like I need to do something there or learn. That sounded like evolution. The other thing I was going to suggest is the whole idea, the path of core stability, because it sounds like something is unsettling you.
Right.
So that might be starting.
Unease. My life's work is unease. It's 57. And then 51 is my evolution. So it's unease and agitation.
My evolution is 57. So we're perfectly just the opposite there. Wonderful.
But so this is my question too. And maybe I feel like such a noob and you guys can just shut me down. But I just do these things pair up like routinely? I guess what I'm saying is, could Does 57 and 51 always pair up when they talk about that? Or do
In
they?
in the activation sequence, they will always pair up. So 51 and 57 are what are called programming partners.
Yeah.
So what that means, and the same is true for your sphere of radiance and your sphere of purpose, those are also what are called programming partners. And basically a way to understand that is if you lay out the gene keys visually onto this wheel so that it ties to like astrology. So the wheel turns as we go through the year and as it passes through, that's how we get the gene key of the week each week, right?
Okay.
The gene keys are exact opposites of one another on the wheel. That's what the programming partners are. So they're totally in opposition to one another. And what that means is that they are opposites that either work to reinforce the shadow patterns that you have in your life or help to pull you up and out into that gift frequency when something comes to you. And so it's really important that you see your life's work and your evolution as a unified field. Those things are working together. So example for me, I've got failure as my life's work and expectation as my evolution. And so it's very clear to me, and those I use that example because it's clear to almost everyone how those tie together, right? If I have an expectation in my brain and I do not achieve that expectation, I then see that as a failure. However, when I move into the gift frequency, what happens is that expectation turns into detachment. And what that detachment allows me to do is go into the gift of preservation, which is instead of running away from failures, instead of trying to figure out how to make something work, I am detached. So I get to just choose, what do I want to preserve? What feels important to me in my heart? What do I want to carry forward out into the world? And so they are this field of energy. Now, that is only the case. Those programming partners only show up in the activation sequence. So only through those sets of spheres that we talked about.
So they would not show up in an SQ, IQ, or any of those other areas.
The gene key might, but it's not going to be tied automatically to that partner. So you might have 57 in your SQ, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have 51 in your EQ, for example.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
A question that I have for you is, what feeling do you think that you would get if the world stopped when something happened to you?
Yeah, that's the other thing, and probably the partner. I would say, don't look at me, move on, because I'm not that important. You know what I mean? I'd be like, no, I'm good. Everything's okay. So it's, I want that, but I don't. So I can just be real about that. It's
Some
like
part of you wants something, though, and I want to tap into that part. Forget about the part that then gets nervous when you do get what you ask for, and just tap into that part of you that's asking. What is it asking for?
Yeah, I think what that is, maybe it's like I want to preserve the awareness or the innocence or the importance, the profoundness of what we don't notice, maybe. And I listened to whatever the message that came through our email from him. I listened to that too. I can't remember what it was, sorry. And it was about that. Slow down, drink tea, notice things, be present. So maybe there's a part of me, maybe that's what I deep down want or something. I don't know. It's just like, notice this, pay attention. It's important.
Yeah. And the question that I have is, if that's what you're craving, which that's the feeling that I got when you initially said that, are you personally slowing down and taking the time to be with that thing that is happening in your life? Because it doesn't matter whether other people do it or not, right? You can give that gift to yourself. I take it back. It does matter. But at the same time, you can give that gift to yourself.
And now you're saying that, I actually do. And sitting here thinking about it, I've been told that I was overly sensitive my whole life. You're too sensitive. You cry. And hey, I can't take it. Sorry. I have to call her back. Sorry, guys. And I'm sorry, guys.
Take your time.
Yeah, I was trying to say, yeah, I think that I totally lost it. Oh my God, somebody knocked at my door.
You were
Yeah,
talking
it
about
was.
how you didn't receive it.
I was told I was too sensitive. And so I tend to get a little dramatic about what I notice in the world. I'm like, oh my God, look at the flowers blooming. And I get a little bit of that, like, just, I'm like a little too much. Maybe I'm a little too extra about how I feel about little things. And so maybe and I don't know. I feel like I lost it, but that's what I was starting to get to, is that as a young person being very sensitive, loud noises, even groups singing happy birthday, I'd hide under the table. Like, I'm just sensitive. I'm a very sensitive person. So I almost feel like it might be connected to that, is that I just wish that I wasn't overly sensitive. And that's perhaps in that profile of mine.
You're not overly sensitive. I
I'm a little
promise.
jumbled, I'll tell you that.
There's sensitivity is a gift. Sensitivity is something that is a superpower when you learn how to be with it and how to accept it. And it's something that really needs to be nurtured and really needs to be given space and given time. Exactly what you're talking about, right? When these things are happening, that's your time to feel into them, to allow that sensitivity to take over, and to just trust that it's giving you the medicine that it needs to give you. And here's another thing to keep in mind, is that people treat you how you treat yourself and how you show up in the world. They're taking their cues from you oftentimes. And so if you aren't taking the space and the time that you need, then somebody comes to you in that same energy. And so you set the example for them. You show them what's right for you and how you need to process what you're dealing with.
Right.
Val, I'm going to call you in, my dear.
Yeah, you pretty much summed up where I was wanting to go with this. Is so, as a lot of you already know, I'm digging deep. I'm that kind of person. So I've been really listening to a lot of Kabbalah, the podcasts, and really I've got a couple of rabbis that I'm following regularly now, because I'm just wanting to understand that underlying piece of this gene key. I'm going everywhere with it because I really want to understand it. And when you were talking earlier and you mentioned about narcissism, I don't think you're narcissistic, by the way. So I'm just going to put that out. But I do feel like we have to. So it's like one of the rabbis had put this image up, and I've already been thinking about this image. So I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track with how I've been feeling about all of this. But it's, if you imagine that we're all in the center of the realm of possibilities, but also the realm of all of us, right? So I'm here, and it's spherical and it's limitless what comes out from that centerpiece, right? In my world, I'm the center of it. I don't really have any other option. I'm here. I'm right here, right now. That's all I can be. But where I am in your sphere, I might be up here, and like Jay's over here and Lily's over here, and we're all in this sphere, all of us. So every single thing that sits inside of you is important. You can affect me on a quantum level. You can affect me without us even knowing each other, because I can feel you. Everything is important. So yeah.
When I was in my 30s, that's beautiful. It reminds me of waking up once in having this, all of the barriers were out, right? Sometimes you wake up and you're in that in-between state. And I remember my husband laying next to me, and I had this profound knowing that there was no separation between he and I. And I just couldn't, I've never forgotten that. And then I also, one time woke up, another profound moment, and it was this voice that said, God is the person that cuts you off on the freeway. And it was just not somebody else's voice, but it was like, I just woke up. So I definitely sensitive, Jay, thank you, because, and it's carried me through a lot of, like when you're helping somebody through a conversation and suddenly you're just saying words and they're coming out and you don't even know where they're coming from, but you just know you're saying all the right things, you know, that sensitivity, that tuning into the flow. I have these moments in my garden. I can remember like last summer, just everything I was doing in my garden was like, oh, and then that piece of wood will go over here, but then these will be enough to go over there. And it was just this flow. And it got so carried away from me that I was doing a puzzle and I was picking up pieces in a puzzle and setting them into the spot. I was like 5, I think I counted 5 before my brain got in the way, where I'm like, how the fuck did you just do that? You just picked up puzzles and I was just in this flow, right? I'm like, I honor this sensitivity, but what the dark side of it does is you missed my birthday, or how could you have done this to me, or why is that so and so? It's this double-edged sword of sensitivity that I have to keep and recognize it. Man, all of this conversation just brought me right to that answer. It's very strange.
Wow.
But I don't know what key that is yet. Figure that out.
I'd like to add to that is I'd love to share some of that sensitivity with you. Never in that spot again when you're feeling overly sensitive. Hey Val, would you like to pick some of that up for me, please? Because I probably will.
Yeah.
You know
like
what I mean though?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just know that when you're doing that, like you're doing that for all of us. There is a strength in that because you're doing that for all of us. And so now I'm going to come in with the science because I'm also a kinesiologist and have studied and with physics and stuff. So we're in the realm right now, electrons, photons, neutrons, everything that flows on a quantum level flows so quickly and can be in and out wherever it's going. So I'm a firm believer that when it comes through us, because it's literally the electrons flowing across the atoms on a constant basis. They're non-stop. There is no stopping. Constant change, constant movement, constant growth. So I'm a firm believer that when something comes through us, the electron picks a little piece of that up and keeps carrying it. And I think that's part of the reason why sometimes you'll find all over the world, people are thinking the same concepts all at one time. And then it comes up and we're all knowing it. It's because it's there. It's in the ether. It's floating around. It supports us. So be sensitive. And if next time somebody tells you that you're overly sensitive, be like, well, I'll do it for you. You don't have to do it. I'll take care of that for you. Seriously, you know?
I love it. I love it.
Amita, I'm going to come to you in a second. I just want to share a couple of things that popped up, Cheryl. So first, what you just described in sensitivity as, on the one hand, being this amazing, beautiful gift to be able to come into this place of like unity, this place of subjugating your intellect into trusting that there is a divine flow that's coming out of you, right? That is the key to heart-centered communication. It is not thinking about what I'm going to say, but just being present, taking it in through not even like, this is a practice for me. I really try not to hear your words, as weird as that sounds. And instead try to just like feel the vibration in the core of my being and trust that what's going to come out of my mouth next is the thing that needs to come out of my mouth to match the vibration that you just sent to me. So that is how you describe sensitivity on the one hand, and what a beautiful gift. And then you said on the other hand, that sensitivity is this thing that makes me angry or upset or mad when somebody doesn't remember this thing, or when somebody steps on my toes or whatever. And basically that sensitivity through the lens of a victim mindset. which is the shadow frequency. So what you just described is the difference between the shadow and the gift. It's the exact same energy. I want to highlight that for everybody. It's the exact same thing. It's how Cheryl is choosing to use it in that moment that really matters. So there's nothing wrong with the shadow energy. That's part of this. It's part of what teaches us how to use it in a way that serves, right? Because we know when we respond in this victim mentality, I know what happens next, and it's not good for me or anybody else. Whereas I know if I can respond from my heart, I also know what that brings.
Right.
So that's one thing. The other thing, just from a place to point you, the 19th gene key is codependence, sensitivity, sacrifice. So I encourage you to check that out when you have a chance. That might be helpful.
Right.
And then Amita, I want to kick it over to you if you have something that you'd like to share.
Thank you. This is an amazing conversation, and I just want to second what Valerie said and then what you said, Jay. But Cheryl, your words brought up some things for me. One is I have the 57 and 51 in my radiance and purpose. We're on the opposite side of the activation sequence. So it's really interesting to resonate with you in that sense, but much more from a bodily sense of knowing what unease and agitation are. Just like this really embodied sense of that. That's number one. I feel you. And the other thing I wanted to share is the amount of work that has called to me that I think we as a collective could be doing on our shadows, not just individually, and I'd like to just share a couple of things that have helped me look at this differently. One is that I've had so much satisfaction from discovering a real strength in my shadow, which is something that I would not have thought possible. A lot of the shadows that we think of as shadows could just simply be a result of what we are taught is not accepted in the world. Right. So if you look at them without the judgment that the world puts on it, does it seem like so much of a shadow? Perhaps not. For example, sensitivity. How much of that shadow aspect is because other people are saying to you, that's too sensitive, or that's too much drama, or whatever it is that you're saying. But if you were to strip that out totally, what does it leave you with, this feeling of sensitivity? I bet from just hearing you, it opens my heart. So I can't expect that it does anything else for you other than to open your heart to the condition of the world, to all the nuances that are happening around you, which other people don't pick up. Because one of the things that we see in our world is just how numb most of us have become. The news that we are receiving, the next set of gun shootings or whatever it is, how many of us really feel that pain? We do feel the pain, but what I mean is there are so many things that happen in our psyche which shut us down. And here you are, you show up like this amazing angel, superpowered to feel what so many of us are either unable to feel or don't want to feel. And so Valerie just said that. It's like there's this balance. There's this balance. When something gets snuffed out in one place, it goes on steroids in another place. And then it seems like there's a balance that's achieved, that we can call upon this from each other when we are aware of it. So I really want to thank you for your sensitivity, because it seems to me like you're making up for a lack of sensitivity elsewhere in the world through this gift. And I thank you from my heart, because it opened my heart when you said that, and to hear you saying that. So
thank you. Oh my God, thank you. In thinking about Andre's story, it's like that immediately, because on that topic about the guns and the violence, and I don't want to do that term, the spiritual bypassing, or that numb, stick my head in the sand. But at the same time, I have to protect. So I can only take in like a tiny little bit. And I just won't. I won't watch it on television. I won't watch violent shows. I won't do it because I can tell that it clouds me. It injures me. I'm too sensitive to even be a part of that. So it's crazy that, yeah, you're saying that, but thank you for that. And then that's why when Andre, it's like listening to your story, okay, I'm here in this little vulnerable setting. I'm going to open myself up to his story because it made me instantly cry. But I felt like that's a scenario that I can be present to that. So I can be, I don't know, feels like you're saying, Valerie, we all heal from this work, right? I believe that. I write songs, and that was like a line that came into a meditation I wrote for my little group. We all heal from our work. And I sometimes write things and don't even know where they come from. And then I look back and go, oh, yeah, we all do heal from this work. And that's why we have to be okay with our shadow. That's very new for me because I'm like a little bit like trying to stay on this optimistic approach to like the world and it's good, but yeah, but everything's okay, right? So I'm trying to welcome that in and say, yeah, no, this is that sensitivity. I'm thinking maybe it's the unease, intuition, clarity. It's the life's work for me. The unease brings me to the intuition. Maybe that's the part that's the unease around the sensitivity being connected to that. And then I'm gonna look at 19 as well. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Amita, thank you. So much wisdom in what you shared. I'm so grateful you're here today.
Thank you so much, guys. Sorry about the video, but thanks so much. I'm enjoying
That's okay. Yeah, not at all. That was beautiful. Jade, did you have, I saw your hand was up. Did you have something that you wanted to share?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Jade. This is my first time actually joining one of these calls. I've been following some of your YouTube stuff. I really like it. The Gene Keys came to me like 6-7 years ago, and it's been keeps calling me back. And I've had a lot of anxiety around it. As much as I've loved diving in, I struggle to I don't know, I guess I'm at a block with my healing of it. It feels very foreign in terms of the next steps I have to do. So I'm at the point where I think mentally I've intellectualized my healing. And you said something the other day, Jay, about you can't like think your way out of the healing. And it's caught me dead stuck. And I think the last like bit I've been really stuck on that. The script's really nice to like feel not alone. I feel very alone in my life with this kind of stuff. Even you saying it's public, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want people knowing like my deep down like things I'm working through, because on the surface I present pretty rounded from what people say to me. This is like my feedback I get, but inside I'm really an anxious kind of like fearful mess. Like I'm always fearful. So I try to like embody and breathe and like surrender, which has helped me get like my health in order. If I was to tell you the first part of my life, I'm 37 now, you'd be like, what the hell happened? Because I did to myself, but I didn't realize. And then trying to own that to yourself is really painful, to realize that you created how you responded to everything. Perspective of that 55th gene K2 is that line, that's my life's work. And my evolution's 59 and their 0.6 is. It's weird because when Andre, you were talking in the beginning, I didn't go to 50, I just happened to grab my book and I was like, oh, like that sounds like freedom and victimization stuff of what's being pulled in to like open and being able to share and being authentic and feeling free. And I go to myself and I think I'm very dishonest with myself. If I was to sit here and say, lay out everything in front of yourself, I don't think I could, which goes so deep. And then I tried to observe myself almost in this call. And as I'm like listening and my heart's opening and I'm like, oh, I'm also got the sense of, oh my God, like I'm gripping with everything I can to be like, it's okay. Everything is meant to be where you're meant to be. We're always evolving. There's the duality of it, right? The yin, the yang, the sun, the moon, the day and the night. And I struggle to be in the dark. I love the night. I like the sun, sorry, and I hate the night. I hate settling for nighttime. I struggle to be in the darkness. I struggle to bring in the demons. And I'm like, no, they're in there. Like I might be such a great, like energetic go-getter. I'm your biggest fan. I love to lift you up. I love to teach. But yet deep down inside, I'm like, I don't feel good enough. I don't feel like I can actually do the things I'm saying, or I don't believe the things people tell me. And it's such a wild, and when I'm in my 40s, I'm just like, I'm like, what is happening? And so I just had to like roll back into this area because I don't like publicly opening up. And I'm like, I'm going to do this because again, this is where the dishonesty comes in. It's like, what are you actually being dishonest about? This is just a human experience. And I have this other side of this intuition where I'm like, there's other worlds there, but no one around me gets it. So I just shut that down my entire life. And I guess I'm trying to find a group of people that I can also just be okay being like, yeah, like I see other worlds. Like intuitively, I try to listen, but the world's so good at programming. I think I've just got so much programming, and every time I take a layer off, what you were saying, Andre, like I take a layer off, there's so much more. I'm like, is there not, have I not, what? Like, how have I not gotten there? How have I not resolved these things that are actually what are causing me to not show up the way I feel like I almost should be showing up? So if you were to like meet me on the street, you probably wouldn't like know a lot of these inner pieces that I'm trying to like integrate, and being so aware of it is almost more detrimental. That's what I'm just so exhausted. Like, I can't run from, I'm telling a girl work, I can't run from my brain. And she's what? I'm like, I can't run from the thoughts. I'm trying to ground. And so, yeah, I'm just on a really intense healing journey. And thank you for having the space and like listening and also sharing your stories and being so open. It really helps me. It just really does. It really feels good, feels safe, feels needed. I feel like this is what is needed a lot in our community, in our world. People are so like, and I think I'm that. You just head down, go to work, focus, check your checkbox. It's like, that's not heart centered. It's not living.
For sure.
Jay, can I chime in for a
Yeah,
sec?
please, Andre. Absolutely.
Jay, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing, because I feel you when you're sharing all that. The unworthiness piece. What's fascinating, because growing up, there wasn't social media for any of us in this room. Social media didn't exist. And when I started this whole personal development journey in 2019, the words like I'm not good enough still didn't exist for me. I know I was like maybe feeling it, but there wasn't like a word. And then somewhere along the line, like I was listening to like podcast after podcast and reading books, and this messaging, this invisible messaging started popping up everywhere. You're not good enough. And we took it on. Subconsciously, we just embodied it because like, oh, I guess I am not good enough because I'm not like the people on social media, right? Because I feel that. Like when I look to Jay Shetty, I look to those kinds of like people, and I'm like, I'm not where they are. So yeah, I'm not good enough. But then I don't know if you all have know about a guy, his name is Julian Blanc. The way he coaches is quite interesting. He's on YouTube, and he mentions about not only to be in the light, but also to be in your dark, because like Jade, being in the dark is half of your power. That's like chopping off 50% of your power source. We are masculine and feminine. We are the yin and the yang. We are light and dark. We are positive, negative. We are all of it. We're all of it. We can't have one without the other. And the thing is, I always like when I started my journey, I wanted to just be in the light. And I've been so negative all my life. Why do I want to be negative again? And I shut down the feelings, and the terms like toxic positivity came about. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I had to learn to like, it's okay to feel both, and not necessarily like dark means like negative. Like dark just means like using another force. It's another energy. Like when I'm at the gym or I'm working out or I'm doing something that's physically demanding, I need that masculine like energy. Whereas like when I'm like chatting right now, I'm more in like the feminine energy. Right? So it's okay to feel what you're feeling, number one. It's all right. But I want to share with you too that you are worthy. Just cuz. There's no reason. Just cuz. You were born. The universe created you exactly the way you were meant to be created. Just cuz. Just like I was meant to be born the way I was meant to be born. Just like everybody in this call was born the way they were meant to be, because we're 1 in 400 trillion or whatever the ratio is. We're a fucking lottery. Excuse my language, but we are a lottery every day. And the other thing too is you're here. You're still alive. You exist. You matter. That's the thing that and I've taken it on myself, that we don't seem to like, oh, I'm not doing like the big things in the world, so I don't matter. Like I'm not like the Gabrielle Bernsteins and the Jay Shettys and all the Lewis Howes of the world. They are us too. They matter. We matter too. We all matter. We're all one. We're all coming from the whatever you all believe in, but like the great soul or the one, and we're just split fragments. So when I'm hurting or when I'm in pain, you guys can feel my pain. When you're happy, I can feel your happiness. Like we're interconnected that way. But my message for you, Jade, is you are worthy just cause. There's no reason. You just are. Plain and simple. That's what I have for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So
Welcome.
thank you. I really do. And I know it's like the wave, when you realize the wave, you're the wave in the ocean, right? It's a beautiful, yeah, it's beautiful. It's just remember, it's just so hard in my life to, I guess I think I'm just more in my mind a lot too. So I have to like really manage that. That's what I think is also, my mind just will not, it's just taken over. Which,
One thing that I want to just bring into the light, pun intended, is this. So Val's studying the Kabbalah. Jade, you mentioned that you're avoiding the darkness. Andre talked about that idea also of needing to integrate that darkness, that other force. And I just want to share, if you're not familiar with Kabbalah, basically, according to Kabbalah, which is like a Jewish mysticism, if you will, light and darkness are intimately linked. And the way that the universe started was that God poured light into these 10 vessels, and they shattered when that happened. And those shattered vessels contain this light, this God energy. And where that light is in the dark. And so I just want to remind you that the way that we contact the light, the true light, is by engaging with the darkness, because that's where it's hiding. And then another piece that I want to share is around the 59th gene key, which is your evolution, which I heard a lot of in your original share, Jane. And I think that we just passed through that gene key from an astrological sense. And I can just hear in your being this shutting down of yourself. And if you listen to the audio from that gene key, he always shares what a dilemma, the dilemma of the gene key that causes us to go into the shadow. And the dilemma of the 59th gene key is trauma. And because we go through these traumatic experiences, we start to disassociate from ourselves, and we don't believe that what we need and who we are is good enough for the world. And that's where the dishonesty comes in. We trick ourselves into thinking we're this other person so that we don't have to deal with whatever it is, whatever that big or little t trauma was. And so the message here is, I don't know what happened, but I do know that turning towards whatever it is the thing that's going to take you from that pattern of dishonesty into that pattern of intimacy. It's what's going to allow you to connect to my heart, because you know some of the trauma I've been through, right? I share it pretty openly. I've been an addict. My parents divorced when I was super young. There was abuse, physical and sexual abuse. There was a suicide attempt by my mother when I was 3 years old. And all of these things are what allow my heart to open to others, because I know that I'm not, although they didn't go through the exact set of circumstances that I went through, I know that they went through something. And that's what creates the intimacy. So instead of hiding from that, it's turning towards it and knowing that, yes, it's going to be a process. And to what Val started with at the beginning of this call, there is likely to be a dark night of the soul. This is not easy work. And what's on the other side of it is the most beautiful thing you will experience in the world. You're welcome.
And I want to add that we're here for you. We're here for you. All of us. We're here for you. I'm a really good at rooting people on, so I'm going to do that.
We need a good cheerleader for sure.
Jay, can I add something based on what you just said about trauma?
Please, yes.
Because something interesting happened just before, Jade, when you were sharing about what's going on in your outer world and how people see you and what's going on in the inner world. I was like, it's interesting how our whole conversation is about the focus is on healing. Okay. What if, and this is just a thought, what if we turn this around? What if healing would be the byproduct of the journey and not the objective? Listening to all of us right now, and including myself, by the way, and that's why I'm glad it just hit me. And especially with the Gene Key 40 right now, the whole idea of exhaustion. We're all trying to heal. We're all trying to get away from the trauma. We're all talking about that shadow and everything, like and try to understand the Gene Keys and do this and do a lot of effort. What if we would just, and that's the word I guess that shows up this week as well, surrender into all of this, and then literally life is what it is, and we may like it or we may not like it, but it is what it is, and based on that we engage with life. And going back to what Cheryl just said as well before, when something shows up and you're like, this isn't how I think I want to show up, we go into the Gene Keys and figure out, so what's the shadow behind that? And it was funny because I just every now and then I just love playing with artificial intelligence with Copilot and just see what shows up. So I literally asked Copilot if healing wouldn't be the objective of the journey, but a byproduct. What would we call the journey? And then Copilot came back and said, that's an interesting perspective. If healing is a byproduct rather than the main goal, the journey could be called a transformative journey or a growth journey. These themes emphasize personal development, self-discovery, and transformation, with healing naturally occurring along the way. But isn't it much more fun to work on growth and self-development and all of that stuff instead of working on healing? I'll leave it here. But this was my epiphany right now. So
maybe we're not all doomed with the future of AI.
We're not. If we use it properly, I guess. But hey, that's a whole different story.
Do you remember last week when I chatted with you guys briefly, when I saw your chart and I was like, and I'm like feeling drawn to writing and the books, and each person could have their own little, what you just said is basically in a nutshell what the premise of my Heal Happily book is, what you just described right now. So now you are just confirming, better get off my ass and start writing the damn thing. Thank you. I'm blown away. I am blown away. Thank you. That's thanks.
You talked about it earlier, Val. He talks about in the Gene Keys book, I can't remember which Gene Key, but if you're familiar with Rupert Sheldrake, who talks about morphogenetic fields, which is just the idea that there are ideas floating through space waiting for somebody to be on the right frequency that's attuned to that idea. And it's what he describes as why classical music popped up in 10 different places within 10 years of one another, and why, like, all of these things just seem like they're looking for a home. An amazing book on this idea is actually called Big Magic. And it's by the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, whose name I'm blanking on right now. But that book, Big Magic, is amazing and really goes in depth. She tells a story there where she had an idea for writing a book about a woman who works for like a construction company who goes to the Amazon to build a road through the jungle, and all sorts of crazy stuff happens. And then she met another writer at a party, and I can't remember the exact circumstances, so this is going to seem really weird, but the two of them kissed for some reason, and it was just like a hello, what's up kiss, just people being real. And like 6 months later, the woman who wrote Big Magic, something had come up in her life, and she stopped writing that story. And the woman who she had kissed released the exact same story. And this was like a story that makes it's not like a classic archetypal story, right? Like the level of character and person, like the women, the heroine of the story had different names, but other than that, they said it was almost the exact same story. So wholeheartedly believe that's a thing. So yes, now's the time. Get off your butt, make it happen before somebody else does.
My body is buzzing so hard right now. Like I feel just strings coming out of the palms of my hands. I can barely handle it. Oh my God. Yeah. I almost feel dizzy. Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, everybody. Wow.
I wanted to
You're welcome.
just want to share again. This is the reason why I love these calls, even though this is my first one on, because when these calls happen, the magic happens. Like John just sharing what he just shared, that impacted Valerie. Imagine Valerie wasn't here or Jan wasn't here. Imagine I wasn't here today. Imagine Jade wasn't here today. Imagine Lily wasn't here today. Imagine any of us who weren't here today, what we would have missed out on. And this is why these calls, these containers are so important, because along as when you're in the aligned like vibration with the aligned people, the magic happens. This is how these calls work. And this is why I can't even express in words the gratitude to Jay and all of you for creating this space as it has been evolving as time is going on. So thank you all for really making this space just magical.
Thank you, brother. You're a part of that too. And
Thank you.
I appreciate you thanking me. And my role is to just get out of the way. The synarchy has this thing figured out. And I'm getting more and more into terms with that as I go, is like the more that I can just allow what needs to come. I was talking to Marcy earlier today, and she's one of the people who committed to going a little bit deeper with me. And that was as we were getting started and digging in. I've had some resistance to starting with her life's work sphere as I wait to figure out our overarching plan, right? Like we haven't officially decided this is what we're going to do, and then this is what we're going to do, and then this is what we're going to do. And I realized that it keeps coming up and we keep engaging with it, and it's part of what she's feeling right now in this moment. And so if I can just get out of the way and allow that to happen, that's when the magic happens. That's when beautiful things really start to show up. So thank you for your thanks, and know that it's not me. I promise you, it's not me. Jade, do you feel, is there anything else that you want to share or say?
No, thank you. No, thank you very much. I'm happy that I was able to even just show up and speak about it. So thank you. And thank you for all your sharing your wisdom.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. Is this every Thursday?
So good question. And no is the answer. I did do them every Thursday for the month of August, but now what I'm doing is going to be every 2 weeks. So our next one is going to be on the 12th, and then the one after that on the 26th. Just remind people, if you decide that you want to dig in on a deeper level with me, I'm still trying to fill that container. Right now, I've got 3 people committed for sure. Penny, who's here right now, is on the fence. We spoke earlier this week, so she's considering. So if that calls to you, just let me know. You can respond to the email. We can hop on a call and figure out if that works. As I mentioned last time, I'm also opening up for now, and I'm not sure where my heart is going to go with this, but I'm opening up some opportunities on a more kind of what the Gene Keys calls a profile session. So more of a one-off situation. Know that those sessions are not for me to tell you anything about who you are or what you're supposed to do. I want to be very clear there. That is not my role. My role is to help reflect and help you think about things maybe a little bit differently and how I see certain gene keys, but it's not to tell you what you should do or understand what the next steps are or anything like that. Marcy, what you got?
I just feel like would it be okay to share a little bit about my experience so far?
I am, as long as it's okay with everybody else. Is that okay, guys? Yes.
Yeah.
Looks like a yes.
It's okay. So for me, how it's been to work with Jay is just to feel this deep, loving accompaniment on this journey, because it can feel really overwhelming. So having Jay as a reflection offers my nervous system some comfort in the places that are really scary. I know I've got someone to go to, and really what I can feel is that the transformation is happening through the relationship, which is also so healing for my own soul. So far, 110% worth everything I put into it.
Thank you so much, Marcy. The feeling is mutual. It really is. I'm so grateful that you're a part of this. Some part of me knows it's important, not just for you. So thank you. And I promise she's not a plant. I swear I didn't know she was going to be here until 5 minutes beforehand. So just quickly back to those profile sessions. That's more if you're feeling lost on the path, you're just getting started, you need help figuring out where to go. That's more what those are for. So just keep that in mind. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you for being here. We will see you guys in a couple weeks. If you can make it, I'd love to see you. Blessings along the path. Remember this week, let go, divine will, let go, slow down. Bye, guys.